Hello friends, I'm glad to see you again. Today I'm going to tell you about the HOA that was building on my land. I was sipping stale gas station coffee on my back porch the morning the bulldozers crawled up the ridge like yellow beetles and started chewing through the grass I'd brush-hogged just 2 weeks earlier. At first I figured the county finally sent a crew to yank out the dead ash trees skirting the old cattle pond, until somebody in a hard hat waved a tablet at me and hollered, "Sir, this area is under construction. Please remain 75 feet back for your own safety." Safety from what, exactly? My own property? See, I own 46 scruffy acres on the very edge of what used to be pure farmland before developers caught the scent of easy money. I grew up here hunting squirrels, fixing fences, and occasionally pretending the pond was a moat protecting my imaginary castle. The pond's only about half an acre, fed by a stubborn little spring and runoff from the hill, but it's mine. Dad left the land to me free and clear. Deed recorded decades ago in fat blue ink long before anybody whispered the word subdivision. So when Mr. Tablet told me to back up, I did the opposite. I walked down the hill and asked him whose idea of a joke this was. He tapped his screen like he was swatting flies, then said the land was Phase 4, Lot 17 through Lot 19 of something called Whispering Cedars Estates. I laughed, out loud, the full belly kind, because Lot 17 through 19 is what I usually call the East Pasture. The only thing whispering out there are frogs and the occasional coyote singing to the moon. He didn't laugh with me. Within an hour, 6 crew trucks, 2 architects, a portable toilet, and a sign reading, "Future Home of the Meadows at Whispering Cedars, Luxury Cottages from the High Dollar 700S" showed up. They parked directly over the little hand-painted no trespassing plank my father nailed to a post in 1988. I tried reason first. I waved down the project supervisor, a stocky guy called Dale, who kept saying, "I just build what the office tells me," while refusing to show me any paperwork. I called the sheriff's office. Dispatch said it sounded civil, not criminal, and maybe I should contact a surveyor. I phoned my buddy Troy, a surveyor. He pulled up the county GIS map and told me my parcel was still firmly outlined in green. No adjustments, no splits. Yet by sunset, the bulldozers had flattened a quarter-acre scar and peeled the pond bank open like a can of sardines. Some genius even spray-painted fluorescent orange arrows on my stone wellhead. Day 2, concrete trucks arrived. Forms went in, rebar grid, the whole 9 yards. That night I camped beside the pond with a portable floodlight, a thermos, and my dog Penny. She's 50 pounds of mutt with a bark that can loosen siding. Every time someone drifted close to the water, Penny let them know the pond was off limits. I let her voice carry. At dawn, a silver SUV with tinted windows rolled up. Out stepped someone I'll call Marjorie, even though her actual first name was somehow both fancier and meaner. Tailored blazer, clipboard, tall latte. The uniform of someone convinced the world will scoot aside when she snaps. "Sir, you're trespassing on common property," she announced. That's when my right eyelid twitched. "I'm standing on ground my father paid off before you were in preschool," I said. "Who are you? And why are you pouring footings on my land?" "I'm the president of the Whispering Cedars Homeowners Association," she chirped. She handed me a trifold brochure full of watercolor drawings of happy retirees kayaking on a pond that looked suspiciously like mine. "Your acreage was incorporated into our master-planned community last summer. If you'll check your mailbox, you should have received notice to join the HOA. Your annual dues are a modest $800. Oh, and we need your signature for lake use guidelines." I held her brochure against the rising sun until the paper almost lit on fire. Then I did 2 things. Snapped a photo of the concrete slabs with my phone and called my attorney, Quinn. Quinn is one of those lawyers people compare to a chainsaw. Loud, dangerous, surprisingly effective if pointed the right direction. He answered on the first ring. I forwarded the photos. Quinn whistled, then said, "Whatever you do, don't lose your temper. Just document everything. I'll pull the plats and meet you tomorrow." Marjorie must have overheard because she leaned in, smile tightening. "If you sue the HOA, all you'll do is waste member resources, which would be quite selfish." She patted my arm like I was a confused toddler trying to eat sand. "Besides, we've already pre-sold both cottages. Think of the boost to your property values. I have never punched anyone in my life, and I didn't start that day. But only because Penny planted herself between us and growled low enough to rattle the clipboard." Marjorie retreated to her SUV. On her way, she shouted, "Expect a compliance letter if that animal keeps violating the quiet hours covenant." Quiet hours, on my own land, at 8:30 in the morning. The compliance letter arrived the next day via certified mail. It accused me of unauthorized camping, keeping livestock in a residential zone. Apparently, Penny qualifies as livestock. Operating unpermitted lighting, harassing construction personnel, and failing to submit architectural review forms for existing structures, by which they meant my barn, built in 1971. The letter ended with a cheerful line: failure to remediate may result in daily fines of $250 and legal action. I scanned it, added it to the growing digital folder titled Evidence, and answered the door when Quinn pulled up in his dusty Subaru. He wore jeans, boots, and a grin. "Let's walk the perimeter," he said. We spent 2 hours photographing stakes, flags, fresh concrete, and the spot where the backhoe had ruptured an old French drain. Quinn recorded a video annotation for each item: unauthorized encroachment, visible date stamp, approximate distance from original deed line, etc. Afterward, he flipped through county records right there at my kitchen table. No amendments, no easements, no transfers, nothing even hinting my land was part of anyone's master plan. "What about their claim they annexed it last summer?" I asked. Quinn snorted. "An HOA can't annex squat without ownership or a recorded covenant. Your dad never signed one. Mondays are motion days at the courthouse. I'll file for an injunction first thing." That night, I parked my truck across the freshly poured driveway pads so no one could pour any more concrete until a judge looked at the mess. I left a neon poster on the windshield: "Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." I half expected Marjorie to show up waving a restraining order. Instead, the site went strangely quiet. The silence ended Thursday at dawn when a deputy knocked politely and handed me a summons from the HOA. They claimed I was obstructing lawful construction and demanded immediate removal of abandoned vehicles. Apparently, my legally registered truck counted as abandoned because it didn't have one of their oval window decals. Quinn laughed so hard when he saw the summons he spilled coffee on his tie. "Perfect," he said, wiping the stain. "Now we counterclaim for slander of title, trespass to chattels, and nuisance. Keep the truck right where it is." Over the next week, 2 distinct plot lines sprouted like weeds. First, the HOA distributed glossy flyers to every mailbox within a 3-mile radius, warning that a rogue acreage owner was jeopardizing community harmony. They photoshopped my face, scruffy beard, ball cap, onto a stock image of a man scowling beside a junkyard. Residents were urged to sign a petition demanding I cooperate. Second, a local micro-influencer named Summer, pink hair, drone camera, 200K followers, showed up uninvited after someone tipped her about the pond war. She posted a slick video of the half-finished cottages jutting grotesquely over the waterline, plus me explaining the history of the pond. Her video went viral enough to land on a regional news station. Public opinion tilted my way fast once they learned the cottages were literally built on stolen land. Marjorie's HOA board responded by doubling down. They emailed me a final opportunity to sign membership documents. The email ended: "Upon compliance, we will graciously waive initial assessments totaling $14,200. If I refused, they threatened to place a lien on my land under their bylaws." Quinn banged out a reply citing the Texas Supreme Court case Terra v. Meek House Association. "Doesn't matter which state we're in. The precedent's clear. An HOA can't impose covenants on property without the owner's express consent recorded in the chain of title." He gave them 48 hours to retract all claims or face a tortious interference suit. They never answered. Friday morning, we filed for a temporary restraining order. The judge read our complaint, looked at the drone photos, and signed the TRO so fast her pen squeaked. Construction halted. Any further work would risk contempt. Crews packed up their gear, though someone accidentally left 6 porta-potties lined along my driveway. Neighbors joked my place looked like a chemical toilet showroom. While waiting for the hearing on permanent injunction, Quinn hired an independent appraiser to calculate restoration costs. Repairing the pond bank alone ran north of $50,000 because heavy equipment had compacted the clay liner. Demoing the illegal foundations added another $60,000. We threw in tree replacement, water quality testing, and lost use of property. Subtotal, $181,300. And that was before punitive damages. My Aunt Frida, a retired teacher, called with juicy gossip. Turns out Marjorie's real estate firm had already collected non-refundable deposits for the cottages, promising buyers lake access and a shared gazebo. With construction frozen, those buyers were furious and they knew exactly whom to blame. One even marched into the HOA office and demanded her $50K deposit back plus interest. She left in tears when they refused. I almost felt bad, almost. Mid-September, we headed to court for the big showdown. Quinn wore a charcoal suit and shark-patterned socks, for luck. I wore boots polished so hard they reflected the fluorescent lights. Marjorie arrived with 2 lawyers and a rolling suitcase stuffed with binders. She still smiled like she was unveiling a new spa package instead of defending against a landfill of liability. I noticed the front row filled with residents clutching HOA newsletters. The whisper campaign had finally backfired, and curiosity morphed into open revolt. The judge, silver-haired, no-nonsense, opened with, "I have reviewed the record and visited the site personally." That alone made Marjorie's left eye twitch. Judges rarely do field trips unless something stinks. Quinn laid out a timeline: deed, trespass, ongoing damage, threats of liens. He projected aerial images: my untouched pond 3 months ago, then the current cratered version. He highlighted statutes on property rights showing the HOA's covenants didn't apply to land outside their recorded subdivision. He cited a string of appellate decisions confirming one immutable fact: you cannot just declare someone's pasture part of your subdivision because it suits your marketing brochure. Marjorie's lead attorney tried a different tack. He argued equitable servitude, claiming my land benefited from HOA amenities. Never mind those amenities were built on my land. He produced the compliance letter as proof I'd been invited to participate. He even suggested the pond visually enhanced my property value thanks to the cottage's charm. The judge asked, deadpan, "Counsel, how does building unauthorized houses on someone's pond enhance the owner's value?" The attorney sputtered something about increased tax base, which is not how property valuation works unless you're the county assessor, and even then you need consent. Quinn cross-examined Marjorie. He asked who exactly granted permission to pour foundations. She claimed the developer had assured her the acreage was unsecured. Quinn produced emails showing she knew 6 months prior that the deeds were missing. She'd scribbled, "We'll sort it out later. Owner seems elderly, probably agreeable." The courtroom gasped. "I'm pushing 42, thank you very much." By lunch, the HOA's defense was wobbling like a Jenga tower missing too many support blocks. After lunch, it collapsed entirely when our surveyor Troy testified. He placed color-coded maps on an easel. Bright red lines showed the subdivision boundary. Bright blue showed my parcel. The overlap was 0. Then he cited meets and bounds from 1959, which matched my deed to the inch. The judge declared a brief recess to draft her ruling. 15 minutes later, she read it aloud. The HOA had trespassed, caused intentional property damage, and attempted to coerce membership through false liens. She awarded me full restoration costs plus additional damages, sufficient to deter future misconduct, $194,500. The courtroom erupted. Some residents even cheered. Marjorie's lawyers looked like they'd swallowed a lemon whole. Outside, local news cameras waited. I kept my statement short. Respect private property. Follow the law. If you mess up, own it and fix it. Then I drove home, where a towing company, hired by HOA's own manager, was removing the porta potties before I could even complain. Funny how fast folks move once a gavel drops. Later that week, rumors flew that Marjorie resigned. The HOA board was calling an emergency election, and some residents were drafting bylaws limiting the board's power to launch new projects without a 2/3 vote. I wished them luck. Personally, I plan to spend part of my award restoring the pond and the rest taking my mom on the Alaskan cruise she's talked about since Dad passed. But that's getting ahead of things. We haven't even covered the part where an out-of-state investor tried buying a slice of my land under a forged signature, or the evening lightning struck one of the half-finished cottages, turning the pitched roof frame into an accidental bonfire visible from 3 counties. Those twists deserve their own space. Light rain drummed the porch roof 3 nights after the judgment when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost let it roll to voicemail, but Penny's ears perked and for whatever reason I answered. A slick baritone came through the speaker. "Evening, Mr. Weston. Name's Silas. I represent an investment group that specializes in strategic acquisitions. Heard you might be interested in selling a few acres, say the section around that pretty little pond." The words were honey smooth yet oiled with condescension, the sort of tone hedge fund guys use when they've already decided you're desperate. I told him nothing on the ridge was for sale, wished him a good night, and hung up. 5 minutes later, he texted a PDF of a purchase agreement. My printed name already typed above the signature line, a closing date 30 days out, and the price, $125,000 for 16 acres plus water feature. I laughed so hard I scared Penny. The pond alone had just been valued at double that for restoration costs, never mind the land. I forwarded the PDF to Quinn with the message, "New clown entered the circus." The next morning, I swung by the county clerk to drop off a certified copy of the judgment. While chatting with Clara, the clerk who'd known my father, I mentioned Silas's call, her brow pinched. "Funny you say that. A transfer packet came across my prep desk yesterday for partial parcel hash 401C. Said it was yours, notarized and everything." I flagged it because the notary seal looked odd. She tapped her computer, brought up the scan, and turned the screen. There, plain as day, was a deed purporting to sell the exact acreage Silas wanted, dated 2 months earlier. My signature reproduced in shaky cursive that looked like it had been copied from an old check. The notary name belonged to a woman who died in 2019. Clara voided the filing. Then we called the sheriff. By lunch, a deputy detective had a warrant to subpoena Silas's phone records. Turns out Silas was actually Silas Drummond, a regional developer already under investigation in 2 states for deed fraud schemes. He'd partnered with the same builder Whispering Cedars used. Made sense. Lose the lawsuit, try a backdoor buyout. Quinn added a fresh claim for forgery and quiet title. Meanwhile, I installed trail cams around every boundary line. Not that it deterred the mischief. Someone cut the padlock on my south gate and left a few dozen stakes painted bright purple, the color Texas law uses to mark no trespassing. Except these stakes were shoved so the tips barely poked above the soil, invisible until Penny tripped one and yelped. Vet visit confirmed no serious injury, but my patience thinned to a thread. While legal gears ground, nature delivered her own verdict. One early October evening, a storm squatted over the county, flinging forked lightning like javelins. I killed the breaker, lit a kerosene lamp, and watched sheets of rain blur the world. At 11:07 p.m., a blinding flash hit somewhere north. A second later, thunder punched the walls. When the wind eased, I stepped onto the porch and smelled smoke. Wet wood smoke, faint but real. I grabbed a flashlight and jogged the quarter-mile toward the half-built cottages. One frame glowed inside like a jack-o'-lantern. Flames licked upward through tar paper roof sheathing. Lightning had found the tallest ridge beam stud and followed it straight into the structure. I dialed 911, then, because water was only 50 feet away, dragged a 2-inch trash pump I kept near the pond for irrigation. By the time the volunteer fire crew bumped down the gravel lane, I had a weak jet knocking fire to embers. They finished the job, soaked the ruins until dawn. The place stank of charred pine and melted vinyl wrap. An investigator ruled it an act of God, but Marjorie didn't waste a beat blaming me. The following afternoon, she posted on the HOA's bulletin, "Certain individuals opposed to our vision have resorted to sabotage." The implication was clear enough that Quinn sent a cease and desist. Public sympathy, already shaky for the board, evaporated. Residents asked why their dues kept footing legal bills for leadership that had just lost a $194K judgment. 2 weeks later, Whispering Cedars held a tense special meeting at the community clubhouse. Summer the YouTuber live-streamed it. Nearly 4,000 people watched. I attended, partly curious, partly to show I wasn't hiding. Marjorie tried to bar me, citing non-member status. The crowd booed. She relented. The agenda lasted 7 minutes before devolving into an open mic reproach fest. One after another, homeowners demanded audited financials, questioned board travel reimbursements, and, my personal favorite, asked why a line item labeled Public Relations Outreach totaled $63,000 in 6 months. Marjorie claimed it covered brochures and community influencers. Someone shouted, "Influencers? You mean lawyers?" Laughter ricocheted off wood beam rafters. A motion rose from the floor to dissolve the entire board pending fresh elections. Robert's rules flew like paper airplanes. Seconded, debated, called to vote. Hands shot up. 86 in favor, 8 opposed. Motion carried. Marjorie's face froze. She huddled with the treasurer, a meek guy named Lionel, then whispered she'd consult counsel. The newly formed interim committee, a kindergarten teacher, a retired postal inspector, and a cybersecurity analyst, politely informed her that counsel would be her personal expense now, not HOA funded. She gathered her binder, left without a word, and never again sat in the president's seat. That might have been enough karma for most tales, but life enjoys encore performances. The State Licensing Board for Real Estate Brokers opened an ethics case. Summer's videos, now a 3-part exposé, contained Marjorie's email about me being elderly. Turns out misrepresenting property boundaries to induce sales violates about 6 separate code sections. During the hearing, Marjorie surrendered her broker's license for 5 years and paid a $25,000 fine. Silas's saga ran parallel. Federal mail fraud charges landed when investigators proved he'd sent forged deeds through certified USPS. He pled guilty to a lesser count, got 18 months in a low-security facility, plus restitution to me for legal fees and a dozen other victims statewide. In early November, real autumn arrived. Maples flamed orange. Pond edge goldenrod bowed under morning frost. With court permission, we hired a wetlands restoration crew. They scraped out contaminated runoff, relined the basin with good Clay County earth, and rebuilt the collapsed eastern bank using native flagstone. I planted swamp milkweed and cardinal flower for pollinators, and we installed a floating dock. Nothing fancy, just pressure-treated lumber anchored to barrels. But every evening I could sit there and watch water reclaim its mirrored calm. Life calmed, yet one last twist hovered. Insurance. Quinn advised we file a separate civil action against the builder's liability carrier. They'd smoothed rebar, poured concrete, sliced drains, all while ignoring my posted signs. The carrier balked, citing an excluded claim period. Translation? They hoped I'd accept act of God plus the HOA settlement. Quinn shrugged, drafted the complaint, served it. Courts are slow, insurers are slower, until Discovery threatens to expose their adjusters' emails. Within a month, they offered $60,000. We countered at $120. They settled at $83,500 and paid within 15 days, bringing my grand total recovery to a hair over $278K. More than enough for the Alaskan cruise, a new tractor, and a scholarship fund at the county FFA chapter in Dad's honor. December 1st, snow dusted the ridge. I hosted a bonfire party, neighbors old and new, plus half the interim HOA committee, who by then had voted to rebrand as the Whispering Hills Neighborhood Association and adopt bylaws that prohibited any future expansion without unanimous approval from adjacent landowners. They presented me with honorary membership #000, purely ceremonial, dues perpetually waived. I accepted after making them promise never to build anything anywhere near my pond again. Laughs, marshmallows, guitar strums under clear stars. About 10 o'clock, Lionel, the former treasurer, approached, hands stuffed in coat pockets. He apologized for the mess, said Marjorie had bulldozed dissent, and he'd let her. He offered me a check representing the remainder of his board stipend, $2,400, and asked if I'd donate it to the scholarship fund. I shook his hand and agreed. Not everything healed perfectly. The half-charred cottage lay in bureaucratic limbo. The builder's parent company went bankrupt, leaving the frame a skeleton against skyline. County code enforcement taped red tags, but no one had budget to demolish it. In February, a kids' mountain bike club asked if they could repurpose the frame into a skills course. We signed waivers, added pads, and now every Saturday morning you can hear whoops as tires rattle over the old joists. From ruin to playground, an accidental monument to persistence. Spring returned. Frogs laid jelly strings in cattail shallows. Dragonflies patrolled. One quiet Sunday, I paddled my John boat to the pond's center, anchored, leaned back, and let clouds drift. I thought about Dad teaching 8-year-old me how to skip stones, about the scorch marks still visible on uphill soil, about Marjorie somewhere reinventing herself, and about Silas counting days until parole. Mostly, though, I thought about how property isn't merely dirt. It's memory layered in soil and water and the right to say, here, this little corner of earth is mine to steward. The mailbox hasn't delivered any surprise covenants lately. HOA newsletters now feature bake sales and lost dog notices instead of thinly veiled threats. Summer moved on to documenting river cleanup projects, but drops by for drone footage when sunset colors curl across the pond. She says her original video taught thousands about reading their plats. I like that. And me? I'm headed north in June with Mom, 2 fleece jackets and a pair of binoculars ready for whales. Quinn joked I should stay off the radar lest another HOA tries annexing the Bering Sea. I told him I'd print "no trespassing" on the deck railing just in case, June arrived like a friendly stray, sunny, scuffed, and full of mischief. Mom and I flew to Seattle for the Alaskan cruise I'd promised her. She packed binoculars, 3 crossword books, and a parka so neon it could flag planes. My kit was lighter: thermals, a paperback on homesteaders, and the folder of legal papers my friend lawyer Quinn insists I carry, in case someone on a floating hotel thinks you owe dues. At the embarkation terminal, while Mom priced balcony upgrades, a toll-free voicemail claimed a collection agency had bought an unpaid assessment of $12,480 from Whispering Cedars HOA and recorded a lien against my home. I pictured my pond stamped with a scarlet X. I called Quinn from the patio. "Mower's still running," he laughed. "That debt's deader than disco, but we'll snuff the embers." He texted an affidavit disavowing any covenant and threatening sanctions. I e-signed, boarded, and resolved not to let spam sink a week of glaciers. Mom whispered, "Vacation first, paperwork later," and for 12 hours, I believed her. Day 1 felt textbook vacation: promenade coffee, a Tlingit art lecture, halibut chowder so good Mom bought the cookbook. At dinner, we were seated with retired Magistrate Emery, beard razor sharp, laugh deep. "You're the pond fellow," he said. He'd seen drone footage of my scrap with the rogue HOA. The world is microscopic. Mishap struck at Hubbard Glacier. Near midnight, the ship jolted. An alarm blared in a storage bay. Crew found a live king crab the size of a throw pillow roaming luggage. Gossip by breakfast claimed I'd smuggled it to sabotage dinner in revenge for lien harassment. Security questioned me, swabbed my mini-fridge, then apologized. I forwarded their report to Quinn. He replied with a single thumbs up. In Sitka, I returned from kayaking to texts. Heavy wind had toppled the charred cottage frame at home, and a salvage crew flashed a forged permit to cart off lumber. The interim HOA blocked the lane. Deputy Hartwell sniffed the fake signature and ran them off. Lionel's photo caption read, "Malicious compliance looks like this." I laughed loud enough to startle a raven. On our last sea day, Judge Emery invited us to tea. He slid over a bankruptcy filing. Red Maple Capital had bought non-performing assets from the busted builder, including an unperfected option to buy my pond for a recreational easement. "They'll move the moment you land," he warned. We disembarked to drizzle and 9 new voicemails, 8 from the collection agency, 1 from Red Maple seeking amicable negotiation. After dropping Mom home and retrieving Penny from the kennel, I drove to Quinn. His whiteboard read, "New foe, Red Maple. Their play, buy stray contract rights for pennies, then bluff landowners into selling cheap to clean the chain." His counter, "Donate a conservation easement to a land trust, preempting any recreational claim while earning a tax deduction." Little Creek Land Conservancy was thrilled. I required 2 clauses: public access only on guided educational weekends and 0 motorized craft. A month later, we filed. The county recorder updated the parcel within hours. Quinn emailed Red Maple's counsel, subject line, "Extinguished interest." Silence ever since. Meanwhile, he fired a debt validation demand plus a draft lawsuit citing the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and defamation. The agency folded fast. Apology, certified lien deletion, and a $7,500 nuisance settlement. By late August, life quieted. I mowed, patched fence posts, helped FFA kids film a seed-starting lesson beside water so clear dragonflies stitched figure eights. Sometimes I still listened for bulldozers, but nothing growled. Autumn marked a year since the first scrape of dozer tracks. The reborn Whispering Hills Neighborhood Association hosted a harvest potluck. Penny and I arrived with venison chili. Hand-painted signs bragged, "No dues increase, community garden coming." Kara, the new president, read a resolution thanking our neighbor Joel for defending land and reminding us what stewardship looks like, then handed me a framed sunset aerial of the pond signed by 53 households. The gesture landed like a smooth stone, sending ripples of relief through the crowd. Winter snapped in. On Christmas Eve, Mom and I snowshoed to the dock under a brittle sky. She gave me a lopsided knit cap, green with a red stitched loop marking pond and trail, and a matching one for Penny. February brought twin headlines. First, a state bill, nudged by homeowner coalitions, now forces HOAs to prove covenants before filing liens. Senator Calder cited the Weston predicament on the floor. Second, Silas Drummond's restitution arrived from federal prison, $4,312. I endorsed it straight to our scholarship fund. By spring, the burned cottage footprint had morphed into a mountain bike course named Skid Row, Added to county maps. Kids banked berms where greed once parked a bulldozer. April. Red maple resurfaced trying to buy an abandoned dairy farm across the county line. The local paper asked my opinion. I offered one sentence. Read every page before you let anyone pour concrete. They printed it beneath a photo of me and Penny, her tongue lolling like she'd single-pawedly blocked urban sprawl. July buzzed with cicadas and more good news. The scholarship fund awarded its first grants, $3,500 each to Leah, future soil scientist, and Miguel, building a drone canopy analyzer. Dad would have loved that. Kids using tech to nurture land instead of subdividing it. That night, Quinn stopped by with paperwork closing the last insurance escrow. We clinked glasses of sweet tea. "You realize," he said, "your fight rewrote 4 careers, gave 70 families a sane HOA, created a bike park and funded scholarships." I reminded him I'd also been branded cruise ship crab smuggler. He grinned. "Every hero needs quirks. Land is never a one-and-done affair, but I've learned the essentials. Know your boundaries, keep receipts, collect allies, and never let bullies decide where your fence posts go." When someone asks if I'd sell, my answer stays gentle, exactly 6 words long. Some things aren't for sale. The pond glimmers behind me like it agrees, promising seasons of quiet victories yet to come. Friends, thank you. See you soon.